What it do, KTTV? This is KT, and I'm coming at you live with another episode of the Daily K Podcast. And on today's episode, we have a candidate for Congress in District 14, Miss Adrienne Bell. How you doing today, Miss Bell?
I am doing well. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be able to talk to fellow educators and really just communicate the message and the word and the need for the fierce urgency of now regarding our country and our politics and things that we need to be doing.
Yes, I agree. We need it because right now it's a real lack of leadership and it is costing lives by the day, you know. And so we got to turn this around one person at a time. So I thank you for being that one person on your end. Yes.
Thank you.
So now, before we get into things, how have you been doing during the pandemic? How have you been staying safe out here?
Well, I've been following the advice of medical professionals and listening to what's really going on through the words of science. And so my family and myself, we've been doing a lot of staying in and just, going out we've been wearing masks since the beginning and making sure that, we had basic instructions of wear a mask, wash your hands, stay home. And so since school had closed in March and I didn't have to report to a work location every day, other than in my study room to where I could give lessons and be a part of the school environment at home, it was a lot easier for me. And so we've been able to do well, and we've been able to fare well during this time as well. This campaign is really taken off. I ran in 2018 for the same seat, and so we received more votes than any Democrat had gotten in a midterm election for Texas 14. And so I had people when, you're always thinking, am I going to run again? And you'd be like, nah, it's too much work, or I'm going to do it again. And then, you'd be having all these conflicting thoughts. I had some people reach out to me, and one lady in particular, she said, Adrienne, you gave us hope. And I started thinking about that because we got like 92,000 votes. And a friend said, what are you going to do about those 92,000 people that voted for you? And, but your mind started going through all these conflicts. But to know and to realize that for some, I gave them hope of what could be done and what we could do together. That motivated me to say, you know what? Campaigning is hard work. There's nothing glamorous about it. I'm willing to do it again if it provides some joy or some happiness or some peace, or some completion in someone else's life. So that's why I'm back out here. That's why our campaign is going strong to represent in Washington, D.C. and Texas 14.
Hey, I love it. And so that's what I was going to ask you. Why was this now the time to run for Congress? But you just gave it to me and told me that it was pretty much, like I say, inspired. And you got that motivation from people knowing that there is a difference being made by what you're doing. And so what better way to motivate you to get back out there, right? By being touched by the actual people you represent.
Right,
awesome.
Right. And our national political landscape is so polarized. It is so divisive. And the people's voices are not being heard. And when you recognize the purpose of Congress is to enact laws and also to bring the voice of the people to Washington, D.C. Well, the voice of the people, especially from Texas 14, is not reaching Washington, D.C. when you have a representative who's not a part of the people, who does not touch the people, does not seem concerned about the people's concerns. And so I'm a people's representative. And my goal is to go to Washington, D.C. and take back the seat of Texas 14 for the people. It's a victory for all of us. Yes.
And I don't want to go any further without talking about your background in education, because this all starts from inside of the school where you're affecting lives there. So what are you currently doing in education at this time?
Currently, well, last school year, I was a fourth grade school teacher in HISD. This upcoming school year, I will be teaching second grade. And of course, with COVID, I really think, and I applaud HISD for the way that the policy they came out with of how school is going to start, because we have the real concern when you listen to educators and parents, it's starting school safely. And I think HISD really came out and said, hey, we're not going to start. We're going to start, but we are going to start safely. And the students and the staff are what's most important. And so we are getting ready to learn. You know, I don't have all the nuts and bolts of how it's going to work, but I do know that, you know, we're going to be virtual and we're going to give it our best because that's what teachers do.
Yes, I agree. Now, I know you said you've been working, and this is your second time running. So, as
Yes.
we look at your qualifications for District 14, can you give me some examples of your work in your local government or social policy that will add to those qualifications?
Okay, I really became involved in politics in 2012 with President Obama's re-election campaign. I was in the Houston office, ended up being over the office, and our charge was to win Florida. And so we made thousands of phone calls into Florida. And the field team in Florida would take those calls and they would actually go knock on the doors. And we could see the movement happening. Well, let me back up a little bit. I first volunteered and I went to Ohio on Obama's team. And I realized the power of community organizing. I had never experienced that in Texas because Ohio was a battleground state, and the activity, the activism, it was totally different. You walk into Ohio, and the first day they gave me a clipboard and a pen, and they say, go register voters. And of course, I came from Texas when you have to be a voter deputy registrar, you got to go to class, and you got all these other restrictions. And I could walk in, in Columbus, Ohio, and my first event was the Gay Pride Parade, and it was a 2-day event, and it is huge. And that was my first event of walking around and registering voters, and I had a great time, and I realized how important it is. And I canvassed, went knocked on doors, and I talked to a gentleman in Columbus who told me he had lived that corner house for like 25 years and no one had ever come to his door and asked him to vote. And he said, young lady, you came all the way from Texas to ask me to vote. And I realized he was actually telling the truth. I had traveled that far because I wanted him to vote. But I brought that back home and realized how we need to start energizing our communities to be a part of the political arena. And so that's what got me started. And I did the work with President Obama's campaign. We started an organization called Battleground Texas, which is still in effect today. And we registered thousands of voters in Harris County. I was a deputy field director. I had 13 counties along the Gulf Coast area. And our charge was to register voters, which you see now, registering voters, turning out the vote. It has impacted, especially the Harris County elections, and has impacted the state. So that's a lot of what I've been doing is community work, talking to voters, being out in the community, and helping people to realize that your vote does have power. You have the power to vote them in, and you have the power to vote them out. And we need to use it.
Yes, we must use it. We must.
Yeah.
Okay. And so right now, we have a lot going on economically with the pandemic. So, we reopened, but now we're starting to close again. And so Congress passed the stimulus package, and it's pretty much gone, right? And so what steps should they take next to help Americans work past this economic crisis?
Well, I want to point out that the current representative in Texas 14 voted against that stimulus package. He was one of 40 Republicans that voted against it. Now, Texas 14 is Southern Missouri County. It's all of Galveston County. It's all of Jefferson County. And so his vote directly impacts everyone. It's not just the voters in Texas 14. And so he voted against you receiving $1,200, which of course did not last very long. Congress has also passed the HEROES Act, and he voted against the HEROES Act as well. And that act is right now sitting in the Senate for the Senate to act on because we need additional stimulus monies. Our small businesses are suffering, and the eviction notices have started rolling out with rent being necessary to be paid and people just not having the money. And so Americans need assistance. And so we need to act on what is already sitting there, and that's getting the Senate to do their job and help us.
Yeah, and that's by putting the right people in who will help us.
Exactly.
Yes, I agree. And so now, as we look at the testing that's been going on and the tracing that needs to happen to keep the economy going, I know it's been a lot of back and forth on who really shoulders their responsibility, the government or the state. So if you're elected, what measures would you support to make sure testing is available for the people who need it, and who do you think their pressure lies with or their responsibility lies with?
First, the responsibility lies with the federal government to not give the message that this was a hoax, that it would just go away, and that it did not matter. And so leadership at the top failed America. Let's be very clear about that. When we started with the other countries, and other countries have gotten coronavirus under control, schools are able to reopen, the economy is reopening, our country didn't do that. And so we had federal representatives who were not pushing the needle and saying, hey, we need to take care of our people. And since that did not happen, then you have the state leadership who was doing the same thing. We didn't have testing going on. If you looked at areas of Texas 14, for example, in Pearland and parts of Missouri County, in order to get tested, you had to go to Harris County because you just didn't have the facilities that were being opened here. And so you had federal representatives, give example, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. I would see her a lot opening up COVID test centers and talking about the need for testing. When the federal government was going to pull out of testing, she was saying, no, we need to have testing here. Well, that's what your federal representatives need to be doing, is fighting for you, fighting to make sure even now that testing is going on. We don't even hear about tracing. We don't hear about it. They were talking about all the jobs that would be added on because we needed tracers. Well, we need tracers. We need to know what people have been that have contracted COVID. But that's just not going on. And the only thing we're having is a lot of people that are continuing to die. And even the recovery, you hear about that there's still future health problems that you have that come about of having COVID. And it's being treated like a political issue and not a public health crisis.
Yes, I agree. And when you think about that, that brings me to the healthcare, because now we're sick, and then what happens next? So, as our country, should we move closer to single-payer healthcare or further away?
I support Medicare for all. And the reason is one thing COVID has showed us. Texas was already the most uninsured state in the nation and beyond. And COVID showed us when people lost jobs and their health insurance was tied to their jobs, now you have even more people uninsured. And you cannot have a functioning society without healthy people. And so Texas also did not expand Medicaid, which even made it worse. And we have increase in maternal mortality, which directly affects a lot of Black women. And no woman should be dying in 2020 with childbirth. Our problems go on and on and on and on because we as a country, we cannot be proactive with our health. We cannot just go to the doctor and say, you know what, I don't feel good, I got this going on, and the doctor takes care of you. We go to the doctor, we go to the emergency room when we're sick, when something could have been prevented. Our prescription drug prices are way too high when I have to decide, you know what, shall I take this pill? Shall we take that one? And you hear of couples that divide their high blood pressure medication because they cannot afford it. And our country is too rich for that, to deny people the basic right of good health care. So I am definitely for Medicare for all. I think everyone deserves the right to high quality medical insurance.
I agree. Very important. As an asthmatic, being a person with Crohn's, I think about an infusion that I get, and I want to say that infusion, no insurance, is $13,000. Yes, and so you just think about what happens to those people who don't get that, who can't afford that type of treatment, or something like that. So I agree. Now, as we live in Houston, and we think about our population of dreamers, so then what do you want, or what are you willing to give up in exchange for protected status or a path to citizenship for those people?
Well, I don't look at it as anything that we have to give up. I believe when we increase and make sure that America is safe for everyone that's here, we actually gain. We have a community that lives in the shadows, that are afraid, that cannot just be out openly because they're afraid of being deported. And the federal government has not had any comprehensive immigration reform in about 50 years. And you know how our population has changed in Texas in just the past 10 years, 20 years. And so we need to have comprehensive policies that allow for humane treatment at the border, that allow for those who are here. We've got over 11 million undocumented workers to become citizens, but to work toward policies that embrace diversity, that embrace those who are already here. And they've been contributing to our society. The stimulus package, did they all get the $1,200? You had couples who were married to immigrants who didn't get part of the stimulus package because of that. And we're so unfair in our practices, but yet immigrants help build our country. They take care of us. They serve us, and we need them. They help to build our economy. So yes, we need practices and a plan. The DREAM Act, the DACA, that would help ensure their security and their safety in this country that they love.
Yes. Okay. And like I say, I just know it's been so much. I was looking in the news the other day, and so at first the president was against it, but I think a few days ago he's now talking about plans, and it's just so much back and forth. But I guess in 2020 that's what the sentence would be when it comes close to election, right?
Exactly. And you listen and you know that like our representatives on the federal level or at the state level, their everyday actions, they impact our everyday lives. And so you have to know that when you have a representative such as the one in Texas 14, when he votes against the stimulus package, he voted against your family being able to thrive during a pandemic. This is unheard of times for us. And so we need as much help as we can get. And you look at other countries that have given their citizens more money. And what did we do? We gave tax breaks to the wealthy. You've got Amazon owner. He's making billions of dollars since this pandemic. And the rich are getting richer, and the poor, we're moving back on the scale. And so it's more of us than it is of them. And so it's so important that we really look to see who is voting for public education. In Texas, we've got legislators. If you are a teacher, you're in the public education arena, you need to know that which legislators are voting for public education. And some of them aren't, and they need to go home because they're not supporting our profession. But we've got to be educated about that as well.
I agree. And so I guess as we get ready to wrap it up, I think about all the educators who are getting ready to start back to work, as such as yourself, as such as me. But then you think about those first year teachers too. And so as a veteran, what message would you give to new teachers coming into the business working under these circumstances?
Wow. I am, if you're a teacher who embraces technology, which we all should be when our training starts telling us about, we're teaching to the 21st century student, you got to embrace it. You got to embrace the difference. COVID has changed education, and it's changed education whether we wanted it to or not. The brick and mortar schools, it's not going to be the same. Students need broadband services, homes need broadband services so that they can participate. Even if COVID disappeared overnight, we still need to be able to advance in those areas. So as a first year teacher, I would tell them to just embrace it, be a part of it, realize that you're making a huge contribution, even if it's across a screen. You're still contributing to the lives of your students, and that to continue to do so. And education it's where it's at. It's teaching our students how to be critical thinkers so that they can be positive contributors in our society. So be proud. The teaching profession, we're losing teachers, and nationally we need to do something to get the profession where there's more newcomers. When I was working on my doctorate, which I put on pause because I was running for office, couldn't do all of that. My dissertation is on teachers leaving the profession. And there's a huge amount. And how do we get in new teachers? How do we get in a diverse population? And with things going on like COVID, now there's some new study information that needs to be had, but we need new teachers. So please, if you're coming in new, don't go. Students need you. We need you. Hang around. Make it work.
And that's what I was worried about on the other side of this. We got so many teachers who are afraid to come back once we go face to face. And I know
Right.
a few of them that are saying it's either resign or take leave, and I need my money. So
Right.
I'm interested to see what happens on the other side of this with our profession. But
Right.
let's do it.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
And
Right.
now, if someone wants to get in to support the campaign, find out more information about you, how can they do so?
Well, please visit us at our website is voteforbell.com. That's VOTEFORBELL.com. You can visit us on Facebook, Twitter at ADRBELL, and please become a part. We do not have enough educators in the political system. So our laws regarding education are being made by people who have not been in a classroom and may have never been in a public classroom, even as a student, but they're making laws about education that is not based on education. We know what it's like to be in a classroom. We know how hard it is, and how much, for myself, this high stakes testing would be one of the first things that hits the door, because we know how much stress and strain it puts on teachers, and how much we're teaching to a test, and the things that we would like to be able to do with our students. So it's needed, it's necessary. We need educators to become involved, to use their voice, not just in the classroom, but also outside the classroom, and vote for legislators who will vote for public education, because public education is so critical, and it is what they seek to move funds from public education to private and charter schools. That directly affects Black and brown children. So we need to stand up, speak up, and vote.
Okay, so when you're elected, first thing on the agenda for education, what is it?
Pre-K education. I think we need to invest heavily in universal pre-K education for our kids. We wait too late. I am for all kids learning two languages, coming in and you learning two languages, and not being a nation of one language, but having at least two. Our kids know two languages, but pre-K education, which also ties in childcare. We had just a situation in our family, and I know a lot of others, where you had pre-K education that's a half day. What do you do with your children the rest of the day? Mm-hmm. Childcare costs are ridiculous in this country. So those two have to go in together to provide childcare and also pre-K education.
On a pilot for our all-day pre-K.
Yes.
And I hate that it got cut short, but because we were seeing some awesome things, so I would have loved to see how that would have affected those guys at the end of the year, how much, the data between half and full. But I guess we'll try it again this year.
That's right. We won't give up. Won't give up. Our 3 and 4 year olds need it.
Yes.
And they, how smart they are, and how how much they're learning and bringing in, and then we're trying to wait until kindergarten for children to learn. Well, we've already lost some years,
Yes.
really good formative years of their lives. So,
I agree.
and I look forward to being able to work with educators and having task force of what do we need in education, and it comes from those who are involved in education, not from those who are on the outside looking in and saying this is what teachers need. Teachers need more pay. They need to be incentivized to go to school to continue their learning.
Yes.
You need to get paid more if you have a master's or a doctorate. We need support.
I agree. Well, I want to thank you today, Ms. Bell, for your time. Just to talk about the work, to talk about the campaign, and just us to download as educators. I appreciate it today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. And educators are the backbone of this country. And I appreciate the work that you're doing, and all educators out there who may be listening of the work that's being done. COVID really pointed out how valuable teachers are, and it was just a good reminder you're valuable. And so we need the work to continue. But thank you so much.
All right, this is KT for KT TV signing out. 100.